What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. In this video, I'm going to be doing a 1,000-yard penetration test with my 300 Remington Ultra Mag, and I'm going to be shooting at some 2x12 Douglas fir framing lumber with some Norma Bondstrike ammunition. These are the 180 grain Bondstrikes. And I've chronographed these, and out of my 26-inch barrel rifle, I get around 3,250 feet per second, which amounts to 4,225 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. Now, the Norma Bondstrike is advertised to be a long-range hunting bullet. It has a really high G1 ballistics coefficient of 0.615, which is just insane for a 180 grain bullet. That's more than the AccuBond long range. So I'm really curious how many pieces of Douglas fir framing lumber this thing will penetrate through at 1,009 yards from my 26-inch barrel custom rifle. This is what the box looks like. And they advertise 3,175 feet per second, and I get a good 75 feet per second higher velocity than what they advertised. So they have a thinner front jacket for expansion at all ranges, power bonding technology for high residual weight and penetration, aerodynamic polymer tip for high BC and quick expansion, match boat tail for high BC, giving speed and extreme precision at long range. So they advertise 3182, and I get around 3250. So I'm really curious what kind of expansion we're going to get, what kind of penetration we're going to get at 1,009 yards. And what I've done with these 2x12s is I've screwed them together into blocks of 8 2x12s, and I put screws in the corner of each of the 2x12s, and then I shoot at the blocks, and then after I'm done shooting, I unscrew the blocks, and we can see how many boards of penetration we get and also what kind of expansion we get. I'm curious if this bullet really performs the way Norma advertises it to. And at 1,009 yards, according to my Applied Ballistics app, the impact velocity should be right around 1,800 feet per second for an impact energy of 1,300 foot-pounds. So I'm really curious to see what's going to happen here. Let me show you guys the rifle I'm going to be using for this test. So the rifle I'm going to be using is actually a custom rifle that was built for me by GA Precision. And I have a CZ550 receiver here with a Krieger light Palma barrel, 26 inches. I have a Silencer Co. Hybrid 46 that I'm going to be using for this test. And I have a Bell & Carlson stock on this thing. The Bell & Carlson tactical stock that they made for the CZ550 Het rifles back when the CZ550s were still being produced. And it's really a shame that they don't make them anymore. That was one of CZ's best firearms. But this is the rifle. I have a Burris XTR2 5-25 power scope, and I literally just zeroed this rifle just a few weeks before doing this test. So I'm really excited to see how this is going to play out. So let's see what happens here, guys. What do you think? How many 2x12s of penetration are we going to get? And what kind of expansion are we going to get with these Norma Bondstrikes? All right, guys, let me show you my hits here. So looks like we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hits on the wood. We got some really nice hits right here, right in the meat of the wood. So that's pretty good. We have one right here that looks like went through 3 boards and then it exited out. So I'm going to take these apart and we're going to take a closer look and see how many pieces of wood these Norma Bondstrikes went through and what kind of expansion we got. And you can actually see how the energy of these bullets shifted the wood. And this is a big block of wood. It's pretty heavy. Each one of those pieces are 18 inches tall and just under 12 inches wide. And those bullets moved around these blocks because you could see how the paper here is loose. So they shifted these blocks. And that Norma Bondstrike is hitting these pieces of wood at 1,000 yards with 1,400 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. So that's like the same amount of energy as a .454 Casull at point-blank range or a plus P44 Magnum. So that's a lot of energy at 1,000 yards. And the impact velocity should be around 1,850 feet per second. So I'm really excited to take these pieces of wood apart and see what kind of expansion we got and what kind of penetration. So stay tuned. All right, guys, I want to go over the results of the test with you now. I was pretty surprised by how little these bullets penetrated. Now, obviously, these were impacting the wood at 1,009 yards, so I wasn't expecting a whole lot of penetration. And some of these bullets were actually backwards in the wood, so they actually tumbled. So that's not really a good sign, but most of them penetrated around 3 boards, and some of them almost penetrated through 4. So just to give you an idea, that's about the same amount of penetration as a 10 millimeter hard cast bear load from buffalo boar. The 10 millimeter hard cast bear loads from buffalo boar can penetrate around 3 of these 2x10s or 2x12s at a distance of about 5 yards. And the 300 Ultra Mag with the 180 grain Norma Bondstrikes can penetrate the same amount as the 10 millimeter, but at 1,009 yards. Okay, that is impressive. So a 300 Ultra Mag with expanding soft point bullets can penetrate the same amount of wood at 1,009 yards as a 10 millimeter can penetrate at 5 yards with a hard cast hot loaded bear load. Okay, so that's still pretty impressive, but I was expecting maybe 4, 5, or 6 boards. So I want to just go through these boards with you. So these were my hits. My first 2 hits were actually right here. These were my first 2 hits. One shot was high and the bullet exited through the wood. And then I had like 2 shots like in the middle of the 2 blocks, which is, it always happens to me when I do these long range tests. For some reason, the bullets just love to go right in between the 2 blocks. It's pretty funny. So then I had 1 hit here, and then I had 3 hits down on the bottom here, 1 and 2 right next to each other, and then a 3rd one here. So plenty of hits on the wood. And then these 2 were my best hits. These were my first 2 shots. So it's always your first shots that are the best when you're fresh and on a cold bore. And that's a pretty tight group at 1,009 yards. You know, that's probably, I don't know, a 5 or 6 inch group with factory ammo and a barrel that has not even 75 to 100 rounds put through it, not even fully broken in. I'd say that's pretty good. So let me show you guys the back of the first board. You can see the exit holes here. These bullets were starting to expand. Here we have the second board. you could really see how these bullets started to expand already in the second board. These holes are pretty big. You can see compared to my finger here, these are probably, I would say, at least 40 caliber holes. These are probably almost a ½ inch in diameter. Okay, pretty big holes here. All right, there's my thumb for comparison. So it's going to do a lot of damage whatever it hits. Even at 1,000 yards, that's a huge hole right there. I mean, this is in wood. Imagine what that would do to tissue. Okay, here's another one. All right, so that's a massive hole. There's going to be a lot of bleeding, and anything that's living that gets hit by this kind of bullet would bleed out extremely quickly. Okay, and then here were the other hits down here. And then here's the back of the second board. Look at these gnarly exit holes here. Pretty impressive. Look at how they tore through the wood. Look at this one right here, how it tore through. Check this out. Pretty crazy here. So this is the back of the second board. Pretty gnarly exit holes there. Okay. And then here we have the third board. And in the third board, we had one that got stuck in the third board itself, almost penetrated through the third board, but it's stuck in there. And then we had another one down here that just barely penetrated the third board, and the rest of them all went through into the fourth board, and then most of them got stuck in the fourth board or penetrated through the fourth board barely. Okay, so here's the back of the third board. You can see one right here poking out the back. So I'm not sure if I'm going to say that this one penetrated through 3. I guess you could say it did, because it punched through the back here pretty far. And a lot of expansion there. You can see a lot of expansion on that bullet. So plenty of expansion. Norma Bondstrike, 1,650 feet per second, impacting wood at 1,009 yards. Plenty of expansion there, but I'm going to take this out. I'm going to take all these bullets out. We're going to take a closer look and see what kind of expansion we got. Here's that one that got stuck in the third board. Okay, you can see this little bump there, so it's probably just under the surface. And then here we have the exit holes from the other ones. Check that out. And then finally, here we have the fourth board. And you can see one bullet right here. This was one of the 2 first shots I made. You can see the bullet there stuck right there. Okay, so just barely penetrating 3 and getting stopped by the fourth. And then we had one of the bullets that went in between the 2 blocks. Look at that. It went right in between, and it was stuck like right here, right in the fourth board. So I'm going to say 3 boards for the most part for this ammunition at 1,009 yards, which is, again, the same amount as a 10mm hard cast barrel load at 5 yards, just to give you a comparison. So that's pretty impressive. And then the fourth board stopped this one here. You can see that huge dent. Okay, and here's the back of the fourth board. And then we have one here that's backwards. Look, that's the base of the bullet there. Okay, it literally flipped around, it tumbled. And I'm not sure if that's because it impacted the other bullet, because if you remember, these 2 were very close together. So maybe it hit the other one and it tumbled somehow. I'll have to take a closer look when I pull these bullets out. But you can see this one is mostly nose forward. I mean, you can see it's kind of angled a little bit. Okay, it's kind of angled slightly, but it's still mostly nose forward. So I'm going to pull these bullets out. We'll take a closer look at them. We'll see what kind of weight retention we got, but pretty interesting results, so stay tuned for more. All right, guys, here are the bullets I recovered. These 2 down here were my first 2 shots. These 2 bullets right here were the ones that collided with each other in the wood. I shot them really close together. And then here was another one. So I want to start with these 2 right here, because these are the best looking bullets out of all of them. They were the cleanest hits in the wood. And look at this expansion, massive amount of expansion there. It's pretty insane. You can see the nose just completely not only flattened out, but it looks like it kind of shifted to the side. Here's the bases of those bullets. Check that out. You can see that nice boat tail. These definitely have a good ballistics coefficient. They officially state 0.615 as their G1 BC, which is just incredible for 180 grain 308 caliber bullet. That's ridiculous, but pretty violent expansion. 1650 feet per second, 300 Remington Ultramag, 180 grain Norma Bondstrike. Pretty insane. 1,009 yards. Look at that. Check that out. Lots and lots of expansion here. So I would say these could easily expand down to 1,300 feet per second, maybe even lower. I mean, this is crazy. This amount of expansion is just unreal for 1,009 yards. This is more expansion than many 308 rifles at 200 or 300 yards. Check that out. It looks like Norma probably makes the jackets towards the nose of the bullet pretty thin so they can expand, but pretty interesting. So imagine what kind of expansion you would get with these at 100 yards or 200 yards. And I'll probably redo this test at closer distances. I'll probably do a test at 100 yards and 500 yards just to see what kind of expansion you would get at those distances. But this is at 1,009 yards, this much expansion. So up close, these would kind of almost explode. I mean, they would completely shred apart and lose a lot of mass. So let's just take some measurements here, see what kind of expansion we got. So I'm going to measure the widest part, and we got 0.67 inches, 0.672 on the widest part. And then if we go to the narrowest part, get around 0.41. That is just insane, guys. This much expansion at 1,009 yards is just insane. And now I know why they didn't penetrate that much, because they expanded very violently. Look at that expansion. So let's weigh this one and see what kind of weight retention we got. Wow, so only lost 30 grains. That's pretty impressive. And these are a bonded bullet, so pretty impressive. So one of these almost penetrated through 4, and one of them penetrated through 3 cleanly. And then here's the other one. The other one of my first 2 shots here. Let's measure the expansion here. Widest part, 0.883. That's crazy. And then the narrow part, you got 0.412, almost exactly the same as the other one. So these bullets pretty much expanded the same. Look at that. They pretty much look identical. Very interesting. I would say these could easily expand out to 1,500 yards. So let's check the weight retention. 161 grains, only lost 19 grains. That's really impressive for this amount of expansion, that it could retain that much of its mass. I mean, look at that thing. That just looks crazy. Look at that. It's a shame that Norma doesn't sell these for reloading. I would love to hand load these, because I know that Norma uses temperature sensitive powders for their factory Norma Bondstrike loads. So I would love to hand load these with some Rotombo or Ramshot Magnum. That would be incredible. Something that's not temperature sensitive. And then here we have the 2 that kind of collided with each other in the wood. Those really close shots. I mean, you could see they still mostly kept their shape for the most part. Okay. You can see a big chunk of this one got sheared off, and then same thing with this one when they hit each other. So they probably just smacked right into each other somehow and just, you know, sheared off the noses. So let's actually just weigh these just for curiosity. Wow, this one has 164.4 grains of weight retention. That's incredible. And I'm not sure if this one actually has pieces of the other bullet attached to it. I can't tell. Got these big chunks of copper there. I don't know. But 164 grains, that's incredible. And then here's the other one, only 112 grains. And then finally, we have this one right here. Look at how far back the jacket peeled on this one. All the way back to the base. Look at that. It just completely peeled back. That is impressive. For 1,009 yards, that is just insane. And everything is just still together intact. So let's just measure the expansion here. So we got about 0.437 on one side. We got about 0.49 on the other side. So about 45 caliber expansion there. 156.6 grains. That is really impressive. Wow. So that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Stay tuned to my channel for more long-range shooting and more long-range penetration tests. I have a 300 Win Mag penetration test at 800 yards with regular AccuBonds and LRX and some Spear Hot Core. I also have some 500 yard penetration tests with the 308 and also 300 Win Mag, so check those out. I'll leave a link in the top right corner. But that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere.